This month we're talking about verse 10 of Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu. This verses 10 to 13 are all about knowledge and ignorance, which is one of the dyads referred to in verse 9. In verse 9, Bhagavan said, dyads and triads exist by always clinging to one thing, namely the ego, in whose view alone they seem to exist. If one looks within the mind to see what that one is, they will cease to exist. Only those who have seen this have seen the reality. See, they will not be confused. What Bhagavan refers to in verse 9 as dyads and triads, dyads are pairs of opposites. The term in Tamil is irritagal, and it's in Sanskrit they're called dvandvas. That's pairs of opposites. The whole world is made up of pairs of opposites, good and bad, happiness, unhappiness, like, dislike, desire, fear, bondage, liberation. We can go on enumerating any number of dyads and dyads. And triads means three factors of objective knowledge. That's when we know an object, there's ourself as the subject, the knower, there's the object which is known, and there's the knowledge, there's our knowledge of that object, or our knowing of that object. Those three factors make up the triputi or triad. Of all the dyads, the most fundamental is knowledge. We are aware of any pair. We have pairs of opposites only exist if we know them. It's only in our view that pairs of opposites exist. So it's our knowledge of the pairs of opposites that give them a seeming reality. And knowledge and ignorance is also very closely connected with the triads, because the triads is the three factors of knowing objects, knowing things other than ourselves. So, as I say, from verse 10 to 13, Bhagavan deals with this very, very fundamental issue of knowledge and ignorance. The words he uses in verses 10 to 11 and 12 for knowledge and ignorance are aṟivu and aṟiyāmai. Aṟivu in Tamil, well, both these words come from the root ari, which means to know, to be aware, to cognize, to perceive. So aṟivu means knowledge, but it means more than knowledge in English. It includes also awareness. So often it's because knowledge and ignorance are a pair, it's sometimes difficult when we're translating it into English to know. It's difficult to choose whether to use the word knowledge or awareness for aṟivu, because it covers both. In most cases, in cases where it's just knowledge and ignorance, I'll just be using the word knowledge and ignorance. In cases where that knowledge is used in the sense of awareness, I'll explain that. So in verse 10, in the first sentence, Bhagavan says, yes, he starts off, aṟiyāmai viṭṭu, aṟivu iṉṭṛu. That is, without, or literally, viṭṭu means leaving. Leaving ignorance, knowledge does not exist. There, leaving is used in the sense of without. Without ignorance, knowledge doesn't exist. What he means by knowledge and ignorance here, he's referring to knowledge and ignorance of things other than ourselves, not knowledge and ignorance of ourselves. Why he says without ignorance, knowledge doesn't exist. He means without ignorance of things other than ourselves, knowledge of them doesn't exist. In sleep, we don't know anything other than ourselves. When in waking and dream, we know things other than ourselves. In waking and dream, we're constantly acquiring new knowledge. We're seeing new things, hearing new things. What waking and dream essentially are is a series of perceptions, of perception of phenomena, of things other than ourselves. And whenever we perceive something or come to know something, we know that we were previously ignorant of it. So the ignorance of something, for example, when we were very young, we knew very little about the world. When we went to school, we started to learn geography, history, reading, writing, all these things. Only when we came to know, for example, when we came to know ABC, we came to know that previously we were ignorant of ABC. Before we had any knowledge of ABC, we didn't know that we were ignorant. And since, according to Bhagavan, nothing exists except independent of our perception or awareness of it, the ignorance comes into the existence at the same time as knowledge. When we come to know something, our prior ignorance of it also comes into existence. The knowledge comes into existence, and the prior ignorance also comes into existence. Because there's no ignorance of things that we don't know, because when we don't know them, the knowledge just didn't exist for us to be ignorant of it. This is a very, very subtle point Bhagavan here. And it can't be grasped unless we understand that according to Bhagavan, nothing exists independent of our awareness of it. It's only our awareness of the world that makes of these things, but make them seem to exist. They don't exist independent of our awareness of them. So whatever we come to know, as soon as that knowledge comes into existence, the prior ignorance of it also comes into existence. So without that ignorance, the knowledge doesn't exist. And in the next sentence he says, aṟivu viṭṭu a-vv-aṟiyāmai iṉṭṛu. Leaving knowledge, that ignorance does not exist. That means without knowledge of other things, ignorance of them doesn't exist. This is what a basic dyad, a basic pair of opposites, and pair of opposites, each has a meaning relative to the other one. So it's only when we come to know something that we come to know we were ignorant of it. And so there cannot be any knowledge without ignorance, and there cannot be any ignorance without knowledge. Here, as I say, this is ignorance and knowledge of things other than ourselves. In the Kali-Vemba version, before the first word of the verse, which is aṟiyāmai, which means ignorance, he added a relative clause to describe it, namely irupol mando, which means which is crowded like darkness. The verb here, mandu, has a range of meanings, including to be close together, crowded or pressed, to collect together, abound, come in flocks, throng, increase, press upon, close in, attack, oppose, resist. So it's got a range of meanings. So what is implied by irupol mandam, though I mean we can say it means which is crowded like darkness, which is close together like darkness, which abounds like darkness, which opposes like darkness. So the general idea of this relative clause is that ignorance is dense, abundant, and obstructive like darkness. And this ignorance and this knowledge are, as Bhagavan says, each depends upon the other. Neither can exist without the other. Then that's the first two sentences. Without ignorance, knowledge does not exist. Without knowledge, ignorance does not exist. And then he says in the third and final sentence, a-vv-aṟiyāmai ārkku eṉḍṛu a-m-mudal taṉṉai aṟiyum aṟivē aṟivu. a-vv-aṟiyāmai ārkku means to whom are that knowledge and ignorance. eṉḍṛu can mark a quotation or can mark we don't have any exact word in English. We could say as or like. So as to whom are that knowledge and ignorance, or like to whom are that knowledge and ignorance. That's a separate clause. a-m-mudal taṉṇai. That means that oneself who is the first, the first. That means the first to arise. So and the self for our real nature. We can understand this very simply from the fact that in waking and dream we have knowledge of things and ignorance of things. In sleep there are no other things for us to either to know or not to know. So in sleep there is no knowledge and ignorance. Only in waking and dream there's knowledge and ignorance. That here referring to knowledge and ignorance of other things, awareness of other things, and ignorance of other things exists only in waking and dream, not in sleep. What is but we exist in all these three states. What is the difference between ourselves? In waking and dream, we experience ourselves as a body. We have risen to this ego, but ego is always aware of itself as I am this body. It's not always the same body. The body we experience as ourselves in dream is a different body to the body we're experiencing now. In dream, if we are injured, for example, when we wake up, we find our waking body isn't affected. We may have had an accident in dream, but in waking, our waking body is unaffected. So these are two different bodies. Generally, from the perspective of waking, we think that the body we experienced in dream was just a mental projection, whereas the body we experience now is real. That's how it seems to us now in this waking state. But while we were dreaming, we seemed to be awake, and that the body we then experienced as ourselves seemed to be our real body. It seemed to be just as real as this body seems to be. As Bhagavan says in Nanya, just as real as everything now seems to be, so real everything seems to be in dream while we're experiencing it. But the ego never rises without experiencing itself as a body. It rises, projects a body, and takes that body to the eye. That's all. These aren't a sequential thing. They're all simultaneous. The very rising of the ego projects a body and experiences that body as itself. So these are inseparable. So it's only when we rise as this ego, experiencing ourselves as I am this body, are we aware of anything other than ourselves, and therefore we have knowledge and ignorance of other things. So when Bhagavan says at the beginning of this sentence, and the a-vv-aṟiyāmai ārkku, to whom are that knowledge and ignorance, we should understand he's referring to the ego. So when he then says, a-m-mudal taṉṇai, well, I'll read the whole sentence actually, it'll make more sense. And the a-vv-aṟiyāmai ārkku eṉḍṛu a-m-mudal taṉṇai aṟiyum aṟivē aṟivu. That literally means only the knowledge that knows oneself, who is the first, as to whom are that knowledge and ignorance is knowledge. Here, Bhagavan is using the word knowledge in the sense of awareness. So we can also interpret this as only the awareness that knows himself, who is the first to appear, by investigating to whom are that knowledge and ignorance, is real awareness. He doesn't use the word real awareness, but it's implied there. What exactly does he mean by knowing the ego? We can understand it in two ways. We can understand it to mean knowing the reality of the ego. What happens when we know the reality of the ego? The ego is somewhat like an illusory snake. We see a rope, we mistake it to be a snake. The snake seems to exist, but when we know the reality of that snake, we see it's only a rope, and the very seeing of the reality of the snake, namely the rope, is the seeing of the non-existence of the snake. As soon as we come to know that what seemed to be a snake is a rope, we know that there never was a snake there in the first place. So also, when we know the truth of the ego, the reality of the ego, which is pure self-awareness, we will know that it was pure self-awareness alone that appeared as the ego. Therefore, we will know that the ego never actually existed. So, what Bhagavan refers to as here as taṉṇai aṛiyum aṟivē aṟivu, that means only the knowledge that knows oneself is knowledge, or only the awareness that knows oneself is awareness. Oneself here refers to the ego, but he's referring to knowing either the reality of the ego, which is our real self, or knowing the non-existence of the ego. We can take it either way, but actually they're identical, because when we know that what we actually are, we'll know that we never were this ego. Now we seem to be this ego that is risen, identifying itself with a body. When we experience ourselves as we actually are, we'll find that there is no that there is no ego at all. Are you still hearing me?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, we can hear you, even though occasionally it breaks, but not bad.
Not bad. Okay, good. The picture isn't coming through, but I don't think that matters.
Yeah.
We'll probably slow it down if the picture came through, so that's no problem. In the Kali-Venva version of this verse, just like he added that relative clause at the beginning, he added one verb at the end. The verb is āhum, which means is. But this doesn't actually change the meaning of this final sentence at all, because in Tamil, if a sentence has no main verb, almost invariably the verb that is implied is, particularly in a context like this. A sentence, when you say aṟivē aṟivu, that aṟivē means only awareness, aṟivu means awareness. That means only awareness is awareness. That means only the awareness that knows oneself is awareness. That is real awareness is the implication. So he added this verb āhum, which, in other words, the verb that was implicit there in the original sentence, he made it explicit. So that doesn't actually change the meaning. So this sentence is a very, very important sentence. Bhagavan is defining here what is real knowledge or what is real awareness. He says only the awareness knows the reality of oneself. It's not said that, but knows oneself is real awareness. The oneself that is to be known, now we seem to be this ego. So the egos, but we have to know the reality of this ego. Knowing the reality of this ego is knowing that it doesn't exist. So since knowledge and ignorance exist only for the ego, as we know from our experience in waking, dream and sleep, when we know the non-existence of the ego, we will know also the non-existence of knowledge and ignorance of other things. Knowledge and ignorance of other things seems to be real, seems to exist, only so long as we seem to be this ego. So when we know the reality of the ego, when we investigate this ego, to whom of this knowledge and ignorance, we will see that there's actually no ego at all, and therefore there's no knowledge and ignorance. Because knowledge and ignorance can't exist without the ego to whom it appears. The idea, the Bhagavan gives in this verse, he develops further in the next 3 verses. We're going to deal with those in more detail in the next few months, but just to give an overview of what Bhagavan says in the next 3 verses. In verse 11, he says, without knowing oneself, who knows, knowing other things is ignorance. So in this verse 10, what he calls the aṟivu aṟiyāmai, knowledge and ignorance, is the knowledge and ignorance of other things. He makes that more clear in this verse. And he says, without knowing oneself, who knows. Who is self who knows is the ego. So without knowing oneself, the ego, who knows everything else, knowing other things is ignorance. So being aware of things other than ourselves is ignorance, because it's only when we rise to this that we're aware of other things. And when we rise to this ego, we don't know the reality. But ego is nothing but a false self-aware, not aware. So without knowing other things is ignorance. Besides, can it be knowledge? He asks a rhetorical question there. Can it be being aware of things other than ourselves without being aware of the reality? Can it be real awareness? Is the implication there? Can it be real knowledge? And then he says in the second sentence of verse 11, when one knows oneself, for support for knowledge and the other, knowledge and ignorance will cease. That is what I was just saying earlier. When we know the reality of the ego, namely that it doesn't exist, since the ego is the ādhāra, support, or that in which knowledge and ignorance are contained, or that which supports the appearance of knowledge and ignorance, knowledge and ignorance will cease, because the ego will, when we know ourselves, the ego will cease to exist, and therefore all knowledge and ignorance cease to exist. And in verse 12 he says, what is devoid of knowledge and ignorance is actually knowledge. In the Kalivenda version he says what is completely devoid of knowledge and ignorance is actually knowledge. That means what is devoid of knowledge and ignorance of other things, what is devoid of awareness or non-awareness of other things, is the real awareness, is the actual knowledge, actual awareness. And then he said, that which knows is not real knowledge. That which knows means the ego. It's the ego that knows things other than itself. So he said, that is not real knowledge. And then he says in the next sentence, since one shines without another, for knowing or for causing to know, oneself is not. One is not a void. No. That is, since our nature shines without anything else, either for it to know or for it to cause to know, or for it to cause to be known. Our real nature, ourself, our real nature is true knowledge or awareness. It is, and then he said, it is not a void, not emptiness, dissolution, nothingness, non-existent. That's a refutation of idea of certain Buddhist philosophers who think that everything is sunya. They say subhava sunya. It's devoid of any real substance or nature. Well, Bhagavan says it's not, because we are soul of a real substance. So we are never, though we are devoid of knowledge and of other things, we have a fullness of pure awareness. The words he's using in Tamil are aṟivu, aṟiyāmai. That's awareness, not knowledge and ignorance, or awareness and ignorance. In verse 13, instead of those two words, the word Sanskrit terms mean the same, jnana and ajnana. Jnana is generally translated as knowledge, but Bhagavan actually uses it in the sense of Bhagavan often uses it in the sense of awareness. So he says in the first sentence, jnana mam taṇṇai, oneself who is jnana alone is real. Jnana here means awareness. So we ourselves who are awareness alone are real. Awareness that is manifold is ignorance. That is, when we raise this ego, the ego is the root and essence of the mind. Mind is nothing but an awareness of multiplicity. So what he refers to here is awareness is your mind. And he says that is ignorance. I mean, he says even that ignorance, which is unreal, does not exist except as oneself, who is awareness. And then he gives an analogy. All the ornaments are unreal. Say, do they exist except as gold, which is real? We see many ornaments. We see necklaces, rings, bangles. These all ornaments are just forms, but the substance of all those forms is gold. So none of those forms have any existence independent of the gold. So ignorance, or our awareness of multiplicity, has no existence independent of ourselves, who have pure awareness. So what Bhagavan is stressing in all these 4 verses is that the only real knowledge, or only real awareness, is awareness of ourselves, of our real nature. And that being aware of anything other than ourselves is only ignorance. And it's not real, because who is aware of things other than ourselves? It's only ego, which is itself a wrong awareness of ourselves, a false awareness of ourselves. What we are, pure, infinite, immutable, unchanging self-awareness. As Bhagavan says in verse 27 of Deshonya, Anadi, Ananta, Akanda, Satchidananda. Anadi means beginning. Ananta means endless, limitless, infinite. Akanda means unbroken, undivided. Satchidananda, that's our real nature. So what we are is pure self-awareness. But we now experience ourselves as this finite body, which has a beginning in time and is going to have an end in time, which is limited not only in time but also in space. This is the very antithesis of our real nature. So the ego is a false self-awareness, a wrong awareness of ourselves. And all its awareness of other things is no more real than the ego. Because how come what is no more real than what knows it? So what is the real awareness is the pure self-awareness that we actually are. So I think that covers that verse and the general idea where this verse is leading to. I think that.
So, can you hear us, Michael?
Yeah.
So basically, here Bhagavan says there is without knowledge there is no ignorance, without ignorance there is no knowledge. So therefore, by inquiring to who this knowledge and ignorance is, and sort of discovering the root or the base of the ego is knowledge, or is true knowledge.
Yes.
Right. So, what is the practical significance that Bhagavan is trying to convey for sadhaka here through this verse?
The practical significance, what Bhagavan is, all of Bhagavan's teachings are aiming at only one thing. They're pointing at only one thing, but we should know ourselves. But so long as we believe that in all that we have so much knowledge about so many things, so long as we believe that this is real knowledge, we believe the things that we know are real. So our mind is constantly going outwards. Bhagavan is constantly emphasizing to us, none of this is real. It's all a dream. It all appears only when the ego rises. So when we investigate this ego to see who we really are, now we seem to be this ego, but when we look very closely at ourselves, we will see what we really are. And when we see what we really are, ego will cease to exist, and along with it, all its knowledge and ignorance will cease to exist. So, even to accept Bhagavan's teachings in theory, we have to have a certain degree of vairagya. If we are still in love with the world, we're not going to find what Bhagavan teaches agreeable. So we're going to we'll reject it. Basically, we'll be unwilling to accept it. In one verse in Guru Bhattacharya, Bhagavan says very, very graphically and strongly, those who take the world to be real are like an infatuated lover who tries to foist chastity upon a prostitute. If someone is madly in love with a prostitute, he will imagine in his mind this prostitute the purest and most chaste girl in the world. He won't be willing to accept that she's just a prostitute. In the same way, because of our infatuation with this world, we are reluctant to accept that this world is unreal. Just as the infatuated lover is reluctant to accept that the prostitute is not chaste and faithful only to him. Her profession is she has to satisfy many people. She can't just satisfy one person. She wouldn't. That's not her profession. It's also this world. It seems to us to be real. So long as we are in love with this world, infatuated with this world, we will not be willing to accept that it's unreal. So Bhagavan is emphasizing in so many ways the unreality of the world, because the one who knows the world, the ego, is itself unreal. That is what the message Bhagavan is driving home in these verses. We don't have to accept this. One never forces anyone to accept it. Most people who come to Bhagavan, they may read talks, or if they came in Bhagavan's lifetime, they will ask a few questions to Bhagavan about what they'd read in scriptures, or about their family problems, or their work problems, or people ask all sorts of questions to Bhagavan. He answered everyone at their own level. But in Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu, he's given us the very core and essence of his teachings. He never forced this on anyone. If people were not ready to accept it, he allowed them to. But he knows you can't force people to accept it. If someone who's madly in love with the prostitute, there's no use telling them, but she's not. But that's what he wants to believe. So long as we want to believe that we have this body, that this world is real, Bhagavan isn't going to try and compel us to give up this. But he has given us Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu for us to think deeply about, and not only, Bhagavan in Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu, he's not only, the whole purpose of Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu is that we should actually practice, we should actually investigate to whom of this knowledge of it. Simply reading Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu is not going to give any use to us unless we put it into practice. What he is constantly emphasizing is that we need to investigate to whom of this knowledge of it, to whom we are being tired to tired. Who is it who wants secrets? Who is it to do it? I mean, all these things, it all comes back to our self-discipline. So, in every verse of Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu, Bhagavan in one way or another point this back to ourselves. Who wants to seek God? It's I want to see God. How can, when I don't even see myself, how can I see God? So in so many different ways, Bhagavan is driving home the point of the whole problem is this ego. Because we rise with this ego, we see all this multiplicity, we see this world, and because we want an explanation of the world, we say there's a God who created the world, or if we don't like the idea of God, we say there's a Big Bang, or we say something or other to account for it. But we never look back at ourselves. Now the world, we seem to be living in a vast universe. We live in this small planet in this vast universe. Even this planet is full of some 7 billion other people. There are so many problems in this world. There's so many things to occupy our mind. We can go out and fight for social justice, we can try and amass wealth, or this, or we can do that. It's all looking outwards. Bhagavan is constantly trying to get us to turn back and look within. He doesn't force this on us, he gives us it. If you want a way out of it, if you're not satisfied with seeking wealth, if you see the problems of the world, if you see all the injustice and the misery and the wars and the terrible things that people do to each other. But has anyone ever been able to solve these problems? People have been trying to, social reformers and political reformers, and people have been trying to improve the world constantly. Sometimes the world seems to get a little better, but then it gets worse again. It's a constant cycle. Now, in the present age we live in, there's more abundance of wealth available than there's ever been before. Because of our power over nature, because of our technology and everything, so many possibilities are available to us which weren't there before. But all these things are possible if we have money. If we don't have money, nothing is possible. If we've got money, we can fly to the Bahamas, we can have holidays, we can have big yachts, we can do this, we can do that, we can do whatever we want. We can buy political power, and so many things. If we've got no money, we're powerless. So, the wealth is so badly distributed in this world now, in spite of all the wealth we have, we've got the haves and the have-nots. So much injustice is there. The world is always like this. If we try and solve one problem, some other problem comes. So, however much we may be anguished seeing the suffering in the world, what can we do to solve it? Bhagavan says there's only one who can solve all the problems of the world. All these problems appear to whom? To me. Investigate yourself, find out whether you are real, and then you'll know whether the problems are real or not. If we investigate ourselves, we as this ego will disappear, and all this world which is just a dream that seems to exist only in our view, will all disappear along with us. So, Bhagavan's path is a path for those who have had enough. Who've had enough of of grasping things for themselves, who've had enough of, who've seen the hopelessness of trying to solve all the problems of the world, all the problems of other people. We can't get satisfaction anywhere in this world. There will always be, if we're after self-gratification, we'll never be gratified. There'll always be something more. If we're concerned about the welfare of others, we can't solve other people's problems. If people want to fight each other in wars, what can we stop them? People do terrible things to each other. How can we stop these things happening when people want to do these things? Wars happen because people want wars to happen. Maybe the majority of people don't want, but there are people who do want wars because they want to gain power or advantage for themselves. So these things are always there. The world has always been full of problems. We cannot solve the world's problems. If we look at the world, our heart is anguished seeing it, but what can we do? So Bhagavan says, there's one thing we can do. Turn within, see what you yourself are, and if you see yourself, you'll see imperfection of the ego. Imperfection of the ego is the wrong awareness, I am this body. All the suffering in the world is rooted in our own self-ignorance, our own ḍṛḥammudalān, sense I am this body. So the only thing that Bhagavan is relentless and constantly, in so many ways, driving home this point. The whole problem is the ego. Only ego, how does the ego seem to exist? It seems to exist. It comes into existence by grasping form, by grasping things other than itself. Because it's formless, it can't exist by itself, it has to grasp form. Where are the forms for it to grasp? No forms exist until it projects them. He says in verse 26, the ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. If the ego is not, everything is not. So the ego rises, projects all this, takes this body as itself. So it's only by turning outwards that the ego comes into existence. It's only by turning outwards that it seems to exist. But so the only solution is for it to turn inwards. What Bhagavan means by inwards, in Bhagavan's definition, the sense in which Bhagavan uses the terms inwards and outwards, everything other than ourselves is outwards. So if we are dwelling on our thoughts or our feelings or something, or as some people say, if you meditate, just watch your thoughts, be a witness, you're still attending to something other than yourself. So when we attend to something other than ourselves, we are sustaining this ego, we are perpetuating the illusion, but we are a separate knower. So the only way to get rid of this ego is to investigate it, to turn our attention away from everything else, back towards ourselves, to see who am I, to whom all this knowledge, ignorance, all these thoughts, all this world, everything, to whom it all appears, only to me. So who am I? Who said the world is full of so many problems? Who is anguished at seeing all the injustice in the world? Who is it who wants to earn billions, gratify personal desires? It's all, whatever it is. There have been terrible people in the world. Hitler wanted to exterminate all Jews because he thought the Jews were the problem. He told the Jews all problems in the world are caused by the Jews. If you get rid of the Jews, the problems will be solved. Who is it? If we investigate, who is it who says the Jews are the problem? Who is it who wants to exterminate them all? Of course, his mind is a very cruel and evil mind, so he's not going to turn within. Only after many janmas, after many births, slowly, eventually everyone will get purified and will come to this path. But whether we are a Hitler, whether we are a great saint, some good world, everything. We want to solve problems, whether by the desire to remove all the problems. To me, who am I?
Thank you, Michael. Any other questions?
Hi, Michael. Can you hear me, Michael?
Yes, I can hear a little. It's a bit echoey, but...
Okay. You mentioned earlier about the ego and the body rise simultaneously. In the case of Bhagavan, he already destroyed his ego. Yet, in our view, his body is still existing. And even going through a normal process like getting old, walking, talking, eating, and even suffered cancer in his final days. That's one question. And then the second one is...
Sorry, what was the question? I heard what you said, but I didn't catch the question.
The question is how do we explain about this case, in the case of the Bhagavan?
Okay.
And the second question is that even though the world seems to be an illusion, but in our view, it's still, the world goes through a process in accordance with the scientific principles. Laws of the nature. How do you explain that?
I couldn't catch that properly.
Okay. Well, since the world is an illusion.
Yes.
But still, in our view, the world seems to be operating in accordance with the law of the nature.
Yes.
How do we explain that?
Okay. So I'll start by about Bhagavan. We can explain it in various ways. Bhagavan, one of the analogies Bhagavan gave was a lion appearing in an elephant's dream. There is a popular belief that elephants are so afraid of lions, but if a lion appears in an elephant's dream, the fear of the lion will immediately wake the elephant up. So Bhagavan has said, Guru is like the lion appearing in the dream of the elephant. The lion appearing in the dream of the elephant is not real. In the same way, the name and form of Guru, the human form of Guru, the person Bhagavan, is not real. But the effect of seeing that unreal lion is sufficient to cause to wake up the elephant. The waking is real, the cause, the name and form of that, the appearance of that lion is untrue. So also the name and form of Bhagavan, even Bhagavan's teachings are not real. Now we're talking about Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu. If what Bhagavan has told us in Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu is true, Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu is unreal. If Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu is real, then what Bhagavan told us in Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu is untrue. So we can say Guru's teachings are unreal, but they are true. That is, they are true in the sense that they are pointing us in the correct direction for our own salvation. But they are, Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu is 42 Tamil verses. It's a phenomenon. It appears, we can study Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu in waking and possibly in dream. We can't study it in sleep because it doesn't exist in our sleep. But it's very, very useful to us in waking and dream because it is pointing us in the direction to which we should be, looking. So, just that's one way of explaining Bhagavan's name and form. But another, we have to, various explanations are required to give us a complete picture, but no explanation is complete in itself. Even all the explanations are not complete in themselves. But the more angles we explain it, the fuller the picture we will get. Another way of explaining Bhagavan's appearance in name and form. Bhagavan is our real self. He has infinite love, since in his view he alone exists. There is no other. There is no world, there's no Michael or Kumar or anyone, there's no Houston, there's no London, there's nothing. But in his view, what exists is only himself. And he has infinite love for himself. So when he sees us, he doesn't see us as other than himself. So he loves us as himself. In the Bible or somewhere it is said, love thy neighbor as thyself. How can we love our neighbor as ourselves so long as we see our neighbor as other than ourselves? Because we all have, as Bhagavan says, we all have greatest love for ourselves. So as long as we see others, we cannot love them as we love ourselves. So the only way to love your neighbor as yourself is to see your neighbor as yourself. In other words, to see no division, no multiplicity. That is Bhagavan's experience. Bhagavan doesn't see us as other than himself, so he loves us as himself. And because he loves himself, and because his real nature is just pure Satchidananda, he wants nothing more than to experience Satchidananda, which he's always experiencing. Since he sees us as nothing other than himself, he wants us to experience that. He wants us to experience our real nature. So his infinite love for us is manifest in outward form, in human form, as a guru telling us to turn within. In other words, the human form of Bhagavan is nothing but outward embodiment of Bhagavan's pure love. And not only his pure love, his clarity of pure knowledge, pure awareness. So it is right to revere the name and form of the Guru. Though we know the name and form of the Guru is not real, it is the reality that has appeared in that name and form in order to turn us within. So we have to have great reverence for Bhagavan's form and also for his teachings. He didn't come just to be, as Sadhu often used to say, Bhagavan didn't come to this world just to be the subject of a story. Some people are satisfied just reading stories about Bhagavan's life and everything, and they think that all we need to get from Bhagavan, we just love Bhagavan and that's sufficient. But Bhagavan didn't come just to be the subject of the story, he came to give teaching. So Bhagavan's teachings are himself in another form. Just like he appeared in human form to give those teachings, he appears in the form of his teachings to turn us within. That's the whole purpose of Bhagavan's manifestation, and the manifestation of his teaching. So in Bhagavan's view, not only he is not a body, we are not a body, there are no bodies, there's no world, there's nothing, there's only pure, indivisible, infinite, beginningless Satchidananda. That is your, I hope, not completely adequate, but I hope it points in the right direction for you to think about for your first question. Because ultimately, we can ask questions of others, but the answers that anyone else gives us is of no use unless we assimilate them. So we ourselves have to think very deeply about all that Bhagavan has taught us and imbibe it and make it our own, as it were. We can do, I mean, the most important thing is to put it into practice, because by putting it into practice, we gain the clarity to understand it correctly. But we also need to, because if we could constantly turn our mind within, nothing else would be necessary. But we still have desires and attachments, so our mind still comes outward. So constantly reading his teachings and reflecting upon his teachings, that's the constant sravana manana, necessary as a support to our nididhyasa, actual practice of this self-contemplation. Your second question was about the world. If the world's unreal, how to explain that everything is following the laws of nature. This is all part of Maya. But if the world is our mental projection, and we are very much attached to this world because, well, there's one part of this world that we take to be ourselves, namely this body. This body is a part of this world. So we love this body as ourselves. We experience this body as ourselves. So since this body seems to us to be ourselves, it seems real. And since the body seems real, the whole world seems real. And therefore, when we project this world, we project it in a convincing way. There are different qualities of dreams. Some dreams are relatively long-lasting and seem very substantial. Other dreams are very fleeting. It's just some passing images. Sometimes things are jumbled up. We're talking to one person and suddenly another person. We're in one place and we're suddenly in another place. Those sort of unstable dreams, the reason those dreams are unstable is because of it's only one used to sometimes say it's a half-blossom state of the ego. We're not so strongly attached to the body that we haven't grasped the body so firmly in such dreams. So it's fleeting. But in this dream and in many other dreams, we are very, very strongly attached to this body. The strength of our attachment to this body gives us stability to the world we see through the five senses of this body. And so this world, part of the stability of the world is that it obeys the laws of nature. There's gravity. If we step out of a window, we're going to fall to the ground and hurt ourselves. We know that. This all holds good so long as this world seems to be real. And this world will seem to be real so long as we take this body to be ourselves. So the laws of nature are all part of the mind's projection. The mind is attached to itself and therefore attached to the world upon which it depends for its seeming existence. So it produces a very convincing enactment. If you were a film producer, if you produce very second-rate, very poor quality films, people will go to the cinema, see your film, and they say, oh, this director is a hopeless director, his films aren't at all convincing. You'll lose your customers. If you were a very good director, and with all modern technology and everything, you produce very, very convincing films, the technology makes it seem that there are really dinosaurs or dragons or all sorts of wonderful mythical creatures or whatever. It also, the actors act so well that you're really convinced by their part. The story is such a well-told story, such a convincing story that we can relate to. Such films, people will flock to the cinemas again and again to see the films of such high-quality production because it's very convincing. So also, because we are attached to this world, because we depend on this world for our seeming existence as this ego, on our spirit seeming existence. So we are naturally very attached to this world, and we want to, so we produced a very, very convincing show that we're ready to come back to again and again and again.
Yeah, it's funny, yesterday I was were two professors who were talking with each other, Indian professors here in the US. So one person was telling the other one, you know, Ananda is in you. And you know, it's not, Ananda is in you. And then the other professor was telling, the second one was telling the first one, no. Ananda is in Audi, man. You got, you know, you got to drive Audi, and that's Ananda. So,
yeah.
So you know, it's just one of those things. You know, people are pulled to the pleasures of life.
Yes.
And it just keeps pulling them back over and over again and again. It needs a lot of willpower to you know, not focus on it. And sometimes actually one of the devotees, he asked me, why do I have to seek happiness? I'm happy, I'm good.
Yeah.
I heard that. I'm good. I mean, you know, why are you asking me to seek perfect happiness? Everything seems to be going fine for me. So, what's your response to those comments? Like,
If people are happy, I mean, we all want to be happy. If they're happy, fine. I mean, they've achieved what we are seeking. But they think they're happy because their desires are being fulfilled. But one day, we may accumulate all sorts of things. We may have a very loving family. We may have enough money in the bank. We may have a very satisfying job that we love doing. Everything in our life may seem to be perfect. But how long is it going to last?
right.
Slowly our friends and our relatives are going to die. One day we're going to die. These are all passing things. For people who are less spiritually mature, they can be satisfied with they can think they're satisfied for a while, but though they say they're satisfied, they're constantly looking for more things. Nobody is actually really satisfied, because we can't be satisfied. Our real nature is infinite Satchidananda. How can we be satisfied with anything finite, anything less than that? So say completely satisfied, but they don't want to let go of what they got. So they say they're satisfied with it. But they want what they got, and they want more things, so they're not really satisfied. But Bhagavan didn't come to tell anyone, you should be dissatisfied. If people were satisfied, people used to come to Bhagavan and say, Bhagavan, I'm doing this mantra, I'm doing this japa, I'm doing this puja. Is it good? Bhagavan would say, oh yes, it's good. Should I continue? Yes, you continue. Because they don't, Bhagavan won't say, no, you have to investigate and find out who says puja is good, who says japa is good. No, obviously those people are not coming to Bhagavan to know the truth of the ego. They're satisfied with doing what they're doing, so he lets them do it. When children used to bring fireworks to Bhagavan, Bhagavan played fireworks with them, for Deepavali or whatever. But Bhagavan doesn't force his teachings on anyone. In fact, Bhagavan didn't give any teachings of his own accord. It's only because there were very few, it's only because of Sri Prakasham Pillai that we were blessed to have Nanya. Who am I? It's only because of Mudra that we're blessed to have Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu. So it's only because of a few very people who really came to Bhagavan for what Bhagavan wanted to give us. It's thanks to those people we have Bhagavan teachings that they're available to us today. If you read a book like Talks, how many people ask questions about so many different subjects? why to come and ask Bhagavan? Why is it said in, I mean, people ask all sorts of things about old texts and why is it said like that, why is it said like that. Do we come to know about all this philosophy and all these religions and all these texts and all these things? What is our purpose in this life? Only the very but if you talk carefully, someone asks a question, Bhagavan will say, give a nice answer. But instead of pursuing that subject, they jump off to some other subject, because they're not really there to grasp what Bhagavan has to say. So Bhagavan allows everyone to go in their own way. But because he knows he is dwelling in the heart of each one of us, slowly purifying our mind, giving us experiences through our prarabdha, which will make us dejected with this external world, and eventually we'll all come back and we'll be willing to turn within. So Bhagavan is infinitely patient. He will allow us to go whatever path we want to go, because he knows eventually, when we are ready for it, we will come back to the only path to salvation, which is salvation is the annihilation of the ego. Ego is a false awareness for ourselves. The only path to annihilate the ego is the path that will give us, only pure self-awareness will annihilate the ego. And to be aware of ourselves as we actually are, we need to turn within. Very, very simple. Bhagavan teaches the philosophy of Bhagavan teaching, the logic of Bhagavan teaching is so simple. But we have to be ready. Until then, we're free to do as we like.
Yes, you have any questions?
It's always puzzling. I mean, it's always, challenging to work it through mentally, intellectually. If that's not the drill. You said at the start that awareness only knows awareness.
Yes, pure awareness.
Knowledge only knows knowledge. And
yes.
We're trying to know it, and we're not going to, because it's all there is. And I guess, Michael?
Yeah, only way to know it is to know ourselves. But awareness knows only awareness, so we are awareness. We need to know ourselves.
But our
so long as we're aware of anything other.
Our minds are part of that ego. To know ourselves. It seems to me the mind is just over here as feeding the ego. So we have to somehow transcend that mind so that we can know ourselves. Am I getting that right, or am I losing?
Well, the ego is the root and essence of the mind. The mind consists of two aspects, a knowing aspect and a known aspect. All the thoughts, everything that appears in the mind, all thoughts means, when Bhagavan uses the term thoughts, he uses it in a very broad sense to include perceptions, hopes, desires, feelings, everything. According to Bhagavan, all mental phenomena are thoughts. So the mind, we can basically divide into two parts. There's all the phenomena, the thoughts, feelings, perceptions, desires, hopes, and everything. And there's the ego, the one who is aware of all these things, the one who has all the hopes, the one who perceives, the one who desires, the one who... That is the root of the mind. So Bhagavan often uses the term mind as a synonym for the ego. Because the one element of the mind that Bhagavan is interested in is the knowing element. That is the ego. Not what is known, not all the thoughts which are just objects. That is not Bhagavan's concern. Bhagavan's concern is with the one who knows all this. So often when he uses the term mind, he uses it as a synonym for the ego, the knower, the knowing aspect of the mind.
So are we to know the ego, or?
Yes. Yeah, we're to know the reality of the ego. When you walking along a dark path and you see a snake lying on the path, you're obviously afraid of it. You're not going to go forward. Bhagavan is walking by your side. He said, it's not a snake, it's only a rope. Look at it carefully and you'll see. To the extent that we trust in Bhagavan's word, we'll have the courage to go close and have a look. If we don't really trust Bhagavan's word, we'll be looking at it, but we'll be keeping it at safe distance. So it will continue seeming to be a snake. In order to see, but it's only a rope, we need to go very, very close to it and look at it very, very carefully. So investigating the ego is like looking carefully at the snake. When we look at the snake carefully enough, what do we see? We see only a rope. We see there never was any snake there in the first place. Likewise with the ego. Until we look at it carefully enough, it seems to be real. When we look at it carefully enough, we'll see there's no such thing as ego. There is only our real nature, pure self-awareness. So we have to investigate this ego so long as it seems to be ourself. When we see what we really are, we'll find there never was any ego in the first place.
Yeah, okay. I got it.
And there was also a point that Michael said in short meditation. You have to trust. You're talking about a snake here. People naturally actually be afraid. So to overcome that fear, you have to have a lot of trust. You go really close, really close, and look. That's the kind of trust you need. You got to put up trust, and then you got to go close. That's so important. Right, Michael? And that's the surrender you're talking about, the trust or sort of total faith in him, in his words.
I didn't hear that. I think I understood what you were saying. I wasn't very, very clear because the sound on this phone is not coming through so clearly. But I think what you were saying is correct, as far as I could hear.
Yeah. So I was focusing on the trust part. But you use the word that you have to trust.
Yes.
Right. So I was focusing on that. That trust is very, very important.
Very, very important.
Right.
But we have good reason to trust Bhagavan, because he has pointed out to us some fundamental errors we're making. Now we don't know what we are, but at least from Bhagavan has shown us why we cannot be what we seem to be. Now we seem to be this body. But if this body were what we actually are, we couldn't be aware of ourselves without being aware of this body. But in dream, we're aware of ourselves without being aware of this body, we're aware of some other body. In sleep, we're aware of ourselves without being aware of any body at all. So we cannot be what we now seem to be. This body that we now seem to be is just it appears in waking and disappears in the other two states. And the body we take as ourselves in dream doesn't exist now and doesn't exist in sleep. So none of these bodies can be what we actually are. So we could, on the basis of simple logic, as pointed out by Bhagavan, we can understand Bhagavan is pointing out, has shown us a fundamental error we are making. So in order to be able to show us this fundamental error, he So if someone tells us it's not a snake, it's only a rope, how can they know that unless they've seen that it's actually a rope? Okay, they could be bluffing, but they wouldn't be going so close to it either, would they? So we have every reason to trust them. If we can trust anyone, we always trust. We trust our doctors. We trust the other drivers on the road. We trust our teachers at school. We trust so many people. But of all the people in this world we've come across, well, in my experience, the most trustworthy is Bhagavan, because he has pointed out the fundamental error in my ways. So how can I, so if I'm to trust anyone, I have to trust him.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Simple question, Michael. Who is subject to the law of karma? Is it the ego or the body?
The ego. Who is it who does actions? We say, we do when, supposing you go out for a walk, you say my body went out for a walk, you say I went out for a walk. Supposing you you see a poor person sitting on the pavement, a homeless person, and you give some money. You say, oh, my body has given money to that person. No, you say, I gave money to the person. We take all the actions of our body, speech, and mind as our actions, because we take this body and mind as ourselves. So it's the ego that is doing the actions. The body and mind are just instruments used by the ego. But the driving force, why we give money to a poor homeless person? Because we feel sorry for them. It's not the body that feels sorry for, it's the ego that is feeling that pity for that person. So all our karmas, the actual doer of the karmas is the ego. And so the ego that did the karmas is the ego that has to experience the fruits of the karmas. But as Bhagavan says in verse 38, Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu, if we are the doer of actions, we will have to experience the resulting fruit. But are we the doer of actions? If we investigate who is the doer, the ego will disappear and all the karmas will disappear along with it. So karma is only for the ego.
Okay. Then for the body who are going through, let's say, diseases, or accident,
yes,
those are said to be the prarabdha of the body. So how do we actually explain them?
Okay, it's the prarabdha of the ego for its body in this lifetime to undergo that accident. Now the ego feels I am this body. So when we undergo an accident, we don't say, oh, my body is injured, we say, I am injured.
Or to the destiny of the ego, suffer those things.
The body doesn't feel pain, it's we who feel pain. The body is just each other, it has no awareness.
Meant to suffer.
But there's something in the body that says, I am this body, and that is aware of the pains and pleasures of this body. That is the ego.
So then how come everybody, every person, the body in this world, going through a different experience? Like some people are suffering from cancer, some of them are suffering from heart attack, or any other diseases that affects the body.
Because each one of them has their own prarabdha.
You refer to the body.
The ego.
The prarabdha is for the duration of the body. in this lifetime, a certain prarabdha has been charted out, a certain destiny has been charted out for us to experience. So if we are to have a heart attack, if we are to have cancer, if we are to whatever is destined, that is going to happen. It will seem to happen to the body, but who is the one who said, I have cancer, I have had a heart attack? But we take the body to the eye, so the poor old body has to suffer along with us. But it's not actually the body. The body is no more suffering than a piece of wood is suffering. The body is jada. The sentient element in the body is the ego. So the actual experiencer of the prarabdha